Desperate for cash, she accepted the private chef job for a millionaire. Shocked he was her ex-fiancé who called her not wife material and never knew she kept his son. The universe has a way of serving justice on a silver platter. 7 years after he told her she wasn't wife material, Jasmine Reynolds found herself cooking in his kitchen, with their secret son playing in the guest house. Have you ever had to face someone who broke your heart, while keeping a secret that could shatter their world? What would you do if the man who once discarded you suddenly held your financial future in his hands? When desperation forces a talented chef to accept a job cooking for a mysterious millionaire, she never imagines it will be the ex-fiancé who humiliated her, or that he'll discover the son she never told him about. Will she protect her heart and her child? Or will this unexpected reunion offer a second chance at the family she never thought possible? Stay with me to discover how one woman's journey from heartbreak to healing serves up the sweetest revenge: forgiveness. Hello, my beautiful queens. Today's story touches something deep in all of us. That moment when life brings you face to face with your past, just when you thought you'd finally moved forward. We've all been there, haven't we? When someone decides you're not enough, not worthy of their world, and you have to rebuild yourself piece by piece. But here's what I know for sure. God doesn't make mistakes, and neither did you by choosing yourself. Sometimes the hardest table to walk away from is the one where you're being served crumbs instead of the feast you deserve. Today's story reminds us that your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see your value. And sometimes, the blessing you've been praying for comes wrapped in the package you least expect. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let's witness how divine timing can turn your greatest heartbreak into your most powerful testimony. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself after someone told you weren't enough, hit that like button right now. And if you know a sister who needs to hear this message of divine timing and restoration, share this video with her today. Present-day Atlanta, Georgia. The aroma of simmering collard greens filled Jasmine Reynolds' small apartment kitchen as she stirred the pot with one hand and checked her bank account on her phone with the other. The numbers hadn't changed since yesterday, still hovering dangerously close to zero. She set her wooden spoon down and closed her eyes, inhaling the familiar scent that always reminded her of Sunday dinners at her grandmother's house. "Lord, I need a miracle," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the gentle bubbling of the pot. "Mama, is dinner ready yet?" 6-year-old Ethan bounded into the kitchen. His school uniform rumpled from a day of first-grade adventures, dark eyes bright with hunger and the boundless energy only children possess. Jasmine tucked her phone away and smiled, the weight of her financial worries momentarily lifting at the sight of her son. "Almost, baby. Why don't you wash up and set the table? We're having your favorite collard greens with that special pepper sauce." "Yes." Ethan pumped his small fist in the air before scampering off to the bathroom, his footsteps echoing through their modest 2-bedroom apartment. As the water ran in the bathroom sink, Jasmine returned to her cooking, adding a pinch of red pepper flakes to the greens. Cooking had always been her sanctuary, the place where she felt most connected to her roots, to her grandmother's legacy. Big Mama had taught her that food wasn't just sustenance. It was love made tangible, history preserved in flavors, healing served on a plate. Once, she dreamed of turning that passion into a thriving soul food catering business. She'd even started planning the menu for her own wedding reception, imagining how she'd blend her grandmother's traditional recipes with her own modern twists. But dreams had a way of taking unexpected turns. 7 years ago, "You're just not wife material, Jasmine." The words had fallen from Marcus Harrington's lips with such casual cruelty that for a moment, Jasmine thought she'd misheard him. They stood in his sleek Buckhead condo, the Atlanta skyline glittering beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. Just hours earlier, she'd been finalizing their wedding menu, deciding between her grandmother's famous peach cobbler and her own bourbon bread pudding for dessert. "What did you just say?" Her voice had come out steadier than she felt, even as the floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Marcus had sighed, running a hand over his closely cropped hair, his expression more annoyed than remorseful. "Look, my father's bringing me into the executive team at Harrington Development. I'm going to be the face of the company's future. I need someone who fits that world. And I don't fit?" Jasmine had asked, though she already knew the answer. She'd seen the looks from his mother at their engagement dinner, heard the whispers about the chef from South Atlanta, who'd somehow caught the heir to the Harrington real estate empire. "You know I care about you," Marcus had continued, his voice softening in a way that felt more insulting than comforting. "But marriage is about more than just feelings. It's a partnership, a business decision in many ways. And the reality is you're not the right investment for where my life is headed." The diamond ring had burned against her finger as she twisted it off and placed it on his imported marble countertop. The same countertop where she'd prepared countless meals for him, where she'd taught him how to make his grandmother's sweet potato pie when he'd confessed he missed it after she passed. "Thank you for your honesty," she'd said, gathering her purse and what remained of her dignity. "I hope you find someone who meets your investment criteria." She'd walked out without tears, saving those for the privacy of her car, where she'd sobbed until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen. What she hadn't known then, what she would discover just days later, was that she was carrying his child. In her hurt and pride, she'd made the decision to walk away completely. If he didn't want her, she wouldn't force him to want their child. Present day. "Table's ready, Mama," Ethan called, pulling Jasmine back to the present. She smiled at her son's handiwork. Mismatched plates set with careful precision, napkins folded into triangles just like she'd taught him. Her heart swelled with love for this beautiful boy who had his father's dimples and thoughtful eyes, but, thankfully, her own resilient spirit. "Looks perfect, baby. Let's eat." Over dinner, Ethan chattered about his day at Westside Christian Academy, the private school Jasmine had sacrificed everything to keep him in. The pandemic had cost her the restaurant job she'd held for years, and though she'd picked up catering gigs and food delivery work, it wasn't enough. The tuition was 2 months overdue, and their rent wasn't far behind. "Ms. Thompson says I'm the best reader in the whole class," Ethan announced, scooping up another forkful of greens. "She let me help the other kids today." "That's wonderful, baby," Jasmine said, reaching across to wipe a bit of pot liquor from his chin. "You get that from your grandmother. Big Mama could read 3 books in a single weekend." "Was she smart like me?" Ethan asked, his eyes wide with wonder. "Even smarter," Jasmine assured him. "And she would be so proud of you, just like I am." After dinner, they washed dishes together, Ethan standing on a step stool, carefully rinsing each plate before handing it to his mother. These small rituals anchored their days, gave structure to a life that sometimes felt like it might unravel at any moment. Later, after tucking Ethan into bed with prayers and a story, Jasmine returned to her laptop at the kitchen table. The job search had become a nightly ritual, scrolling through listings, sending applications into the void, praying for responses that rarely came. "Just one break, Lord," she murmured, rubbing her tired eyes. "That's all I'm asking for." Her phone pinged with an email notification. Probably another rejection, she thought, but clicked anyway. "Ms. Reynolds, your culinary resume has been brought to our attention for a private chef position with one of Atlanta's most discerning clients. The position offers competitive compensation, $85,000 annually, full benefits, and includes living accommodations in a private guest house on the estate. Our client values discretion and prefers to maintain privacy, so there will be no in-person interview. If interested, please review the attached contract and respond by tomorrow. Regards, Elite Staffing Solutions." Jasmine stared at the screen, heart racing. $85,000. Place to live. Benefits. It seemed too good to be true, especially the part about no interview. But the agency was legitimate. She'd heard of them placing staff with Atlanta's wealthiest families. She scanned the contract. The client remained unnamed, listed only as Buckhead Estate Holdings, LLC. The job required her to live on-site 5 days a week, with weekends free. She could bring her son. The estate had a guest house where they would stay. It was perfect, almost suspiciously so. But Jasmine was out of options. "Lord, if this door is from you, let it be a blessing," she whispered, signing the contract with shaking hands before she could talk herself out of it. 3 years ago. "Mama, why don't I have a daddy like Jaden?" Ethan had asked one evening as Jasmine tucked him into bed. He was 3 then, just beginning to notice the differences between his family and others. The question had pierced her heart, though she'd prepared for it. You do have a daddy, baby. He just lives far away. Why doesn't he visit me? Doesn't he like me? Jasmine had gathered her son close, breathing in the sweet scent of his baby shampoo. Your daddy doesn't know what a wonderful, special boy you are. That's his loss, not yours. But you have me, and I love you enough for 2 parents. And you have Big Mama watching over you from heaven, and your aunties at church who spoil you rotten. But why doesn't he know me? Ethan had persisted, his little brow furrowed in confusion. How could she explain to a 3-year-old that his father had deemed his mother unworthy? That she'd chosen to keep him a secret rather than subject him to potential rejection? Sometimes grown-ups make complicated choices, she'd said finally. But none of those choices have anything to do with how lovable you are. You are perfect exactly as you are. Present day. The following Monday, Jasmine stood before the imposing gates of one of Buckhead's most exclusive estates. Ethan's small hand clutched in hers. Her other hand gripped the handle of her knife roll, the professional set her grandmother had gifted her when she graduated culinary school, before life had taken its detours. This house is bigger than my whole school, Ethan whispered, eyes wide as the gates swung open. The driveway curved through manicured grounds toward a sprawling Georgian-style mansion. Jasmine swallowed hard, fighting the feeling that she didn't belong in such a place. She'd grown up in South Atlanta, raised by her grandmother after her mother passed. Places like this existed in another universe. A silver-haired woman in a crisp uniform met them at the front door. Ms. Reynolds? I'm Mrs. Porter, the estate manager. Welcome to Harrington House. Jasmine froze. Harrington? Yes, though Mr. Harrington is quite private these days. He rarely leaves his home office. Mrs. Porter smiled kindly at Ethan. And this must be your son. There's a lovely playroom in the guest house, young man. As they followed Mrs. Porter through the mansion's gleaming hallways, Jasmine's mind raced. Harrington was a common enough name, she reasoned. Couldn't be him. Marcus had been building a life with some society woman last she'd heard. Someone who fit his world. The kitchen was a chef's dream, wolf range, sub-zero refrigerator, marble countertops stretching for days. Jasmine ran her fingers along the cool surface, momentarily forgetting her anxiety. Mr. Harrington has simple but refined tastes, Mrs. Porter explained. Southern cuisine is his preference, though he appreciates innovation. He dines alone at 7 each evening in the small dining room. You'll find the pantry and refrigerator fully stocked according to your requested ingredients. After settling Ethan in their new quarters, a charming 2-bedroom guest house just behind the main residence, Jasmine returned to the kitchen. She unpacked her knives, laying them out in precise order, a ritual that always centered her. Then she began preparing her grandmother's recipes. Smothered chicken, candied yams, collard greens with turkey neck, cornbread from scratch. As she cooked, she prayed, Lord, guide my hands. Whatever brought me here, let me serve with excellence. At precisely 7, Jasmine arranged the food on a serving cart and wheeled it toward the dining room. The house was quiet except for the soft classical music drifting from somewhere upstairs. She entered the dimly lit dining room and began setting out the dishes on the table, which was set for 1. Smells just like home. The deep voice from the doorway sent a shock through Jasmine's body. She knew that voice, had once loved that voice, though it sounded older, perhaps a bit rougher around the edges. She turned slowly, her worst fears confirmed as Marcus Harrington stepped into the light. He looked different, silver threading his temples, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 7 years ago, a certain weariness in his posture. But those eyes, those deep brown eyes that she saw every day in her son's face, were unmistakable. Jasmine? He breathed, looking as stunned as she felt. The serving spoon clattered from her hand to the hardwood floor. I didn't know, she managed. The contract didn't specify. I had no idea they'd send you, Marcus said, taking a step forward. I just told the agency I wanted someone who could cook Southern food. Real Southern food. Like your mama used to make? Jasmine finished bitterly, finding her voice. Except I'm good enough to cook for you, but not good enough to marry? Marcus flinched as if she'd slapped him. Jasmine, that was... I should go. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Please don't. The food, it looks amazing. And we have a contract. Jasmine closed her eyes, thinking of Ethan, of the overdue tuition, of their nearly empty bank account. She couldn't walk away from this opportunity, no matter how painful. Fine, she said, straightening her shoulders. I'll fulfill my professional obligations. But that's all this is, professional. She left him standing there, surrounded by the comfort food of his childhood, and retreated to the kitchen where she could breathe again. Leaning against the counter, she pressed a hand to her racing heart. What are you doing, Lord? She whispered to the ceiling. What kind of test is this? Of all the kitchens in all of Atlanta, she'd ended up in his. The man who'd broken her heart, who'd deemed her unworthy, who had no idea he had a son sleeping just yards away in the guest house. It felt like some cosmic joke, or perhaps divine intervention of the most mysterious kind. Jasmine took a deep breath, steadying herself. She'd survived worse than this. She'd given birth alone, raised a child alone, built a life alone. She could certainly cook meals for Marcus Harrington without falling apart. But as she cleaned up the kitchen, her hands trembled slightly. The past she'd worked so hard to leave behind had suddenly caught up with her, and she had no idea what tomorrow would bring. For 2 weeks, Jasmine maintained a careful distance. She prepared exquisite meals, left them in the dining room, and retreated to the guest house where Ethan was settling into their new routine. She'd enrolled him in virtual school temporarily, planning to drive him to Westside once she received her first paycheck and could clear the tuition debt. Each morning, she'd rise before dawn, say her prayers, and slip into the main house while Ethan still slept. By the time he woke, she'd have breakfast waiting in their guest house, and Mrs. Porter would look in on him during the brief periods when Jasmine needed to be in the main kitchen. You're a blessing, Jasmine told the older woman one afternoon. I don't know how I'd manage without your help. Mrs. Porter smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. That boy of yours is a delight. Reminds me of my grandsons at that age. Full of questions and energy. He's my whole world, Jasmine said softly. And his father? Mrs. Porter asked gently. Is he in the picture? Jasmine's hands stilled on the dough she was kneading. No, it's just us. The older woman nodded, not pressing further. Well, you've done a fine job with him. That's clear to anyone with eyes. But Marcus made distance difficult. He began appearing in the kitchen while she cooked, asking questions about ingredients, complimenting her techniques. At first, she answered with clipped professionalism, but his persistence wore at her defenses. 5 years ago, I don't need a man to complete me, Jasmine had declared to her best friend Tanya over coffee, while their toddlers played nearby. Ethan and I are just fine on our own. Tanya had given her a knowing look. Nobody's saying you need completing, girl. But even the strongest trees bend in the storm sometimes. It's okay to admit you're tired. And she had been tired, bone-deep exhausted from working double shifts at the restaurant, from night feedings and early mornings, from carrying the weight of every decision alone. But admitting that felt like failure somehow, like proving Marcus right about her not being enough. I'm not tired, she'd insisted, even as her eyes burned from lack of sleep. I'm blessed. Present day. My grandmother taught me to cook, Jasmine explained one afternoon as Marcus watched her roll out biscuit dough. She hadn't meant to engage in conversation, but cooking always loosened her tongue, and the question about her technique had been genuine. After Mama died, Big Mama raised me on love and good food. I remember you talking about her, Marcus said quietly. She passed while we were together, right? Jasmine nodded, surprised he'd remembered. Just before you and I. She trailed off, unwilling to revisit that pain. Before I made the biggest mistake of my life, Marcus finished. Jasmine's hands stilled on the dough. Don't do that. Don't try to rewrite history. I'm not. I'm just acknowledging the truth. He leaned against the counter, careful to maintain space between them. I was young, foolish, and under pressure from my family to marry the right kind of woman. My father had just brought me into the business, and I was desperate to prove myself. So I was a liability? Jasmine resumed cutting biscuits, pressing the cutter with more force than necessary. No, you were real, too real for the fake world I was trying to inhabit. Marcus ran a hand over his face. It took me years to realize what I'd thrown away. Jasmine arranged the biscuits on a baking sheet, refusing to meet his eyes. Words hurt, Marcus. Some wounds take years to heal. I know. And I'm sorry. Sorrier than you can imagine. She finally looked at him. What happened to you? Mrs. Porter said you rarely leave your office. That's not the Marcus Harrington I knew. A shadow crossed his face. Life happened. A failed marriage to exactly the kind of woman my parents approved of. A business partnership that imploded spectacularly. I still have money. More than I need, but not much else. Despite herself, Jasmine felt a flicker of compassion. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. I earned every bit of my misery. He offered a sad smile. But your food. It's the first thing that's made me feel something good in a long time. 6 years ago. Push, Jasmine. One more big push, the midwife had urged. Alone in the delivery room except for the medical staff, Jasmine had gathered her remaining strength and pushed with everything she had. The pain had been transcendent, beyond anything she'd imagined. But then came the cry, that first indignant wail of new life, and suddenly nothing else mattered. It's a boy, the midwife had announced, placing the squirming, vernix-covered infant on Jasmine's chest. A beautiful, healthy boy. Looking down at her son's face for the first time, Jasmine had seen Marcus immediately, the shape of his brow, the curve of his lips. For a moment, grief had threatened to overshadow joy. Then the tiny hand had curled around her finger with surprising strength, and she'd known with absolute certainty that this child was meant to be hers, that every painful step had led to this perfect moment. "Hello, Ethan," she'd whispered, the name she'd chosen months before suddenly feeling right. "I'm your mama, and I will always, always love you." Present day. Before Jasmine could respond to Marcus's confession, her phone rang. She wiped her hands and checked the screen. Ethan's virtual school teacher. "Ms. Reynolds? Ethan seems quite unwell. He's burning up with fever and complaining of a sore throat. I think you should check on him immediately." Jasmine's heart raced as she rushed to the guest house, finding Ethan curled on the couch, his small face flushed with fever. "Baby, what hurts?" she asked, pressing her lips to his forehead. "Everything, Mama," he whimpered. "My throat feels like fire." His temperature read 103.8, dangerously high. Jasmine called his pediatrician, who advised bringing him to the emergency room immediately. "I don't have my car," she realized aloud, having taken an Uber to the estate that first day. "I'll call a rideshare. Is everything all right?" Marcus appeared in the doorway, concern etched on his face. "Ethan's sick, really sick. I need to get him to Children's Healthcare downtown." Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed his keys. "I'll drive you. It'll be faster than waiting for a car." Too worried to argue, Jasmine gathered Ethan in her arms and followed Marcus to his Range Rover. He drove with focused intensity, navigating Atlanta traffic with skill, while Jasmine cradled Ethan in the back seat, praying continuously under her breath. "Lord, please protect my baby. Please let him be okay." Marcus glanced at them in the rearview mirror, his expression unreadable. "We're almost there. How's he doing?" "His fever's still high," Jasmine said, her voice tight with worry. "He's never been this sick before." At the hospital, Marcus handled the paperwork while nurses took Ethan's vitals. The doctor diagnosed severe strep throat with possible complications and ordered immediate 4 antibiotics. "He'll need to stay overnight for observation," the doctor explained. "His blood work shows concerning inflammation markers." "I'll stay with him," Jasmine said immediately, though anxiety flashed through her. She hadn't packed anything, had no change of clothes, no toothbrush. "I'll get whatever you need," Marcus offered, as if reading her thoughts. Just text me a list. As Ethan dozed fitfully in the hospital bed, Jasmine sank into the chair beside him, emotionally exhausted. The beeping monitors and antiseptic smell brought back memories of her own childhood hospital stays after her asthma attacks. Her grandmother always at her side, steady and strong. "You're going to be just fine, baby," she whispered, stroking Ethan's hair back from his forehead. "Mama's right here." Marcus returned hours later with a duffel bag containing everything she'd requested, plus comfort items she hadn't thought to ask for. Her favorite tea, a soft throw blanket, a charger for her phone. "Thank you," she said, genuinely touched by his thoughtfulness. "You didn't have to do all this. It's the least I could do." He set the bag down and looked at Ethan, his expression softening. "How is he?" "They're running more tests," she told him, voice rough with worry. "They mentioned his blood type is complicating things. He has a rare one." Marcus frowned. "What type is he?" "AB negative. Only about 1% of the population has it." Marcus went very still. "That's my blood type." Jasmine's heart stuttered. She'd always known, of course, had seen it on Ethan's birth certificate and recognized the significance. But hearing Marcus say it made the reality inescapable. "Jasmine," he said slowly, "how old is Ethan?" She met his gaze steadily. "He's 6. He was born 8 months after you ended our engagement." Marcus stared at the sleeping child, recognition dawning in his eyes, the dimples, the shape of his brow, the curl of his lashes against his cheeks. "He's mine," he whispered. Not a question but a realization. Tears filled Jasmine's eyes. "Yes. Why didn't you tell me? You made it very clear I wasn't what you wanted," she said, her voice breaking. "I found out I was pregnant right after you left. I didn't want him growing up feeling unwanted the way you made me feel." Marcus sank into the chair opposite her, his face ashen. "I had a right to know. And he had a right to be loved unconditionally," Jasmine countered. "Could you have given him that then? When you were so concerned with appearances and what your family thought?" Marcus opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, the fight draining from him. "No," he admitted finally. "I couldn't have. I wasn't ready to be the father he deserved." They sat in silence, the beeping of hospital monitors the only sound between them. "I'd like to be in his life now," Marcus said eventually. "If you'll let me." Jasmine studied him, searching for the arrogant young man who had broken her heart. Instead, she saw someone humbled by life, genuine remorse in his eyes. "We'll see," she said carefully. "Ethan comes first. His well-being is all that matters to me." "As it should be." Marcus looked at their sleeping son with wonder. "I've missed so much." "Yes," Jasmine agreed softly. "You have. Can you imagine keeping such a powerful secret for years?" Type "divine timing" in the comments if you believe God orchestrates even our most painful moments for a greater purpose. And if you're new here, subscribe to join our sisterhood of powerful stories. 4 years ago. "He looks just like his daddy," Jasmine's aunt had remarked at Ethan's 2nd birthday party, not knowing the weight of her casual observation. "He looks like himself," Jasmine had replied firmly, though her heart had clenched at the truth of the statement. Every day, Ethan grew to resemble Marcus more. The same thoughtful expression, the same dimples when he smiled, the same determined set to his jaw when he was frustrated. Sometimes, catching these glimpses of Marcus in their son brought a bittersweet ache. Not regret exactly, but a wistfulness for what might have been if Marcus had been a different man, if she had been the kind of woman his family deemed acceptable. "You ever think about reaching out to his father?" her aunt had pressed. "A boy needs his daddy. A boy needs people who love him unconditionally," Jasmine had corrected. "Ethan has that in abundance." Present day. The next morning, the doctor confirmed Ethan was responding well to treatment. His fever had broken, and he could go home the following day if his improvement continued. "You're the chef at my house," Ethan said when he finally noticed Marcus sitting quietly in the corner of the hospital room. "Do you know you have the same dimples as me?" Marcus smiled, revealing the matching indentations. I just found out that's because I'm your dad. Ethan's eyes widened. For real? Mama said my dad lived far away. Jasmine winced. It had been a gentle fiction to spare her son the pain of rejection. I did live far away, Marcus said carefully. Not in distance, but in my heart. I was lost for a long time, but I'd like to be in your life now, if that's okay with you and your mom. Ethan considered this with the solemn thoughtfulness that always reminded Jasmine of Marcus at his best moments. Do you know how to play Minecraft? Ethan asked finally. Marcus laughed, relief evident in his face. No, but I'm a quick learner. The simplicity of the exchange brought tears to Jasmine's eyes. Children could be so forgiving, so open to possibility. If only adults could approach life with the same willingness to start fresh. When they returned to the estate, everything had changed. Marcus insisted on covering all of Ethan's medical bills and clearing Jasmine's debt at Westside Christian Academy. At first, she resisted. I don't want your money, Marcus. It's not about the money, he countered. It's about responsibility. He's my son too, Jasmine. Let me do this one thing, at least. Reluctantly, she agreed, but only for Ethan's sake. The relief of knowing his school tuition was paid, that she wouldn't have to worry about medical bills on top of everything else, was undeniable. In the days that followed, Marcus made good on his promise to learn Minecraft. Jasmine would find them in the guest house living room, heads bent together over Ethan's tablet, her son patiently explaining the game's intricacies to his father. You have to mine the diamonds with an iron pickaxe, Ethan instructed. See? Like this. Got it, Marcus said, his brow furrowed in concentration. And then we can make diamond armor? Exactly. You're learning fast for an old person. Marcus laughed, the sound freer than Jasmine had heard since arriving at the estate. Thanks, I think. Watching them together stirred complicated emotions in Jasmine's heart. Joy for Ethan, who deserved to know his father. Wariness for herself, remembering the pain Marcus had caused. And something else, something she wasn't ready to name. Seeing this new, humbled version of the man she'd once loved. 1 week later. I'd like to cook dinner for you and Ethan tonight, Marcus said one afternoon as Jasmine prepared lunch. In the main house. She looked up, surprised. You cook now? I've been practicing, he admitted. Nothing fancy, but I can manage spaghetti without burning down the kitchen. The thought of Marcus Harrington, who once couldn't boil water without assistance. Cooking for them made Jasmine smile despite herself. Ethan loves spaghetti. I know. He told me it's his second favorite after your mac and cheese. The fact that Marcus had been paying attention to their son's preferences, learning about him, touched something in Jasmine she'd thought long buried. All right, she agreed. Dinner would be nice. That evening, they gathered in the formal dining room, though Marcus had made it less intimidating by using colorful plates and playing Ethan's favorite music softly in the background. The spaghetti was simple but good. The sauce clearly from a jar but doctored with fresh herbs and spices. This is delicious, Mr. Marcus, Ethan declared, twirling pasta around his fork with concentration. Thank you, buddy. And you can call me Dad, if you want to. Marcus glanced at Jasmine, seeking approval. If that's okay with your mom. Jasmine nodded, her throat tight with emotion. Whatever Ethan is comfortable with. Ethan considered this seriously. I think I'll try Dad, and see how it feels. After dinner, as Ethan helped clear the table, a chore Jasmine had instilled in him early, Marcus turned to her. Thank you, he said quietly, for raising such an amazing kid, for being here despite everything. I know I don't deserve either of you in my life. This isn't about what you deserve, Jasmine replied. It's about what Ethan deserves. He deserves to know his father, and you seem genuinely interested in being that for him. I am. More than anything. Marcus hesitated, then added, And what about you, Jasmine? What do you deserve? The question caught her off guard. For so long, she'd focused solely on Ethan's needs, putting her own aside. What did she deserve? Peace, certainly. Respect. A life without constant financial struggle. But love? That seemed like a luxury she'd stopped allowing herself to consider. "I deserve to be valued for exactly who I am," she said finally. "Not changed or molded to fit someone else's expectations." Marcus nodded slowly. "You always deserved that. I was too blind to see it then." Before she could respond, Ethan returned from the kitchen, yawning widely. "I'm tired, Mama. Can we go home now?" "Of course, baby." She rose, grateful for the interruption. "Say goodnight to your dad." The word felt strange on her tongue, but the smile that lit Ethan's face made any discomfort worthwhile. "Night, Dad," he said, allowing Marcus to hug him. "Thanks for the spaghetti." "Anytime, buddy. Sweet dreams." As they walked back to the guest house, Ethan's small hand in hers, Jasmine felt as though they were crossing more than just the manicured lawn. They were stepping into uncharted territory, a new landscape where old wounds and fresh possibilities existed side by side. "I like him," Ethan said sleepily as she tucked him into bed. "He's not as scary as I thought dads would be." Jasmine smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "What made you think dads were scary?" Ethan shrugged. "Jaden's dad yells a lot, and Zoe's dad left and never came back. But my dad seems nice, and he's trying really hard at Minecraft even though he's not very good." Out of the mouths of babes, Jasmine thought. Children saw through pretense to the heart of things. Marcus was trying not just with the game but with fatherhood itself. The question was whether trying would be enough. 2 years ago, "I'm not looking for anyone," Jasmine had told her church sisters when they tried to set her up with the new deacon. "Ethan and I have our routine. We're happy." "Child, there's happy and then there's fulfilled," Sister Bernice had replied, her wise eyes seeing more than Jasmine wanted to reveal. "God didn't design us to walk alone." "I'm not alone," Jasmine had insisted. "I have Ethan, I have all of you, I have my church family. And that's a blessing," Sister Bernice had acknowledged. "But there's a difference between being surrounded by love and sharing your journey with a partner. Someone to help carry the load when it gets too heavy." Jasmine had smiled politely but changed the subject. The truth was, she'd built walls around her heart so high and so thick that the idea of letting someone scale them terrified her. What if she opened herself up only to be found wanting again? What if she trusted and was betrayed? Better to focus on what she could control, raising her son, building her career, strengthening her faith. Present day. Over the next few weeks, a new routine emerged. Jasmine still prepared Marcus's meals, but now they often ate together as a family. Marcus adjusted his work schedule to spend afternoons with Ethan, helping with homework or taking him to the park. On weekends, when Jasmine and Ethan would normally return to their apartment, Marcus invited them to stay, turning the estate's pool into a water park or organizing movie nights in the home theater. "You don't have to do all this," Jasmine said one Saturday as they watched Ethan splash in the pool. "He'd be happy with much simpler things." "I know," Marcus replied, "but I'm trying to make up for lost time. And honestly, I'm enjoying it as much as he is. Maybe more." She studied him, noting the changes 6 years had wrought. The arrogant young executive was gone, replaced by a man who seemed more at ease in his own skin despite the setbacks he'd mentioned. There was a gentleness to him now, a thoughtfulness that reminded her of the Marcus she'd first fallen in love with, before ambition and family pressure had hardened him. "What happened with your marriage?" she asked suddenly. "If you don't mind me asking." Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching Ethan practice his cannonball jumps. "Camille was exactly what my parents wanted, Spelman graduate from a good family, connected to all the right people in Atlanta society. We looked perfect on paper. But we were strangers living in the same house. She wanted the Harrington name and the lifestyle that came with it. I wanted." He trailed off, then continued more softly. "I wanted what I'd thrown away with you. Authenticity. Real connection. Someone who saw me, not just my potential or my bank account." "I'm sorry," Jasmine said, and meant it. "That sounds lonely." It was. After 3 years, she had an affair with my business partner. They conspired to push me out of a development deal I'd been working on for years. When I confronted them, they didn't even deny it. Just told me I was too idealistic, that business and marriage were both about strategic advantage. That's cold. It was a wake-up call, Marcus admitted. Made me realize I'd become exactly what my father wanted, ruthless, calculating, putting profit above people. I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. So what changed? Everything. I bought Camille out of her shares in the company, divorced her, and walked away from the partnership with Julian. Focused on smaller, community-centered developments instead of luxury high-rises. Started working with nonprofits on affordable housing initiatives. He smiled ruefully. My father nearly had a stroke when I announced the new direction. Said I was throwing away the Harrington legacy. And were you? I was redefining it. At least, that's what I told myself. He looked at her directly. But the truth is, I was trying to become someone you might have been proud of. Even though I thought I'd never see you again. The admission hung between them, too honest to dismiss, too loaded to easily accept. Marcus, I'm not saying that to pressure you, he added quickly. I don't expect anything. I just want you to know that losing you changed me. Made me question everything I thought I wanted. Before Jasmine could respond, Ethan called from the pool. Mom, Dad, watch this dive. They both turned to watch, clapping appropriately at his somewhat awkward but enthusiastic attempt. The moment passed, but Jasmine felt its weight lingering. A pebble dropped into still water, ripples spreading outward. That night, after Ethan was asleep, Jasmine sat on the guest house porch, wrapped in a light blanket against the evening chill. The estate grounds were beautiful in the moonlight, the gardens silvered and mysterious. May I join you? Marcus asked, appearing at the bottom of the porch steps. She nodded, and he settled into the chair beside her, respecting her space. I've been thinking about what you said earlier, she began. About changing. I meant it. I believe you. But Marcus, people don't change completely. The core of who you are, that remains. And you're worried that deep down, I'm still that man who hurt you. She appreciated his directness. Yes, not just for my sake but for Ethan's. He's already getting attached to you. If this is temporary, if you decide again that we don't fit your world, it would devastate him. I understand your concern. But Jasmine, the man who said those things to you, that wasn't my core. That was my fear, my insecurity, my father's voice in my head. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. My core, the real me, was the boy who fell in love with you in that cooking class at the community center, who was amazed by your talent and your spirit, who felt more at home in your grandmother's tiny kitchen than in any boardroom. The memory caught her by surprise. Marcus showing up week after week to the community cooking class she'd been teaching, claiming he needed to learn basics but really just wanting to be near her. How they'd laughed when he'd burned the rice. How natural it had felt when he'd first kissed her among the spice jars and mixing bowls. That was a lifetime ago, she said softly. It doesn't have to be just a memory. His voice was gentle, without demand. I'm not asking for anything right now except the chance to be Ethan's father and, maybe, your friend. The rest, that's in God's hands. The mention of faith surprised her. The Marcus she'd known had attended church for networking opportunities, not spiritual guidance. You believe that now? That God has a plan? He nodded. Hard not to, when he led you right back to my door after all these years. With our son. Marcus stood, respecting the boundaries she'd set. Good night, Jasmine. Thank you for sharing Ethan with me. As he walked back toward the main house, Jasmine found herself wondering if people really could change at their core. Or if perhaps what changed was not the essence but the layers of pretense and fear that covered it. Maybe the real Marcus had been there all along, buried beneath expectations and ambition, waiting to emerge. 1 month later. I have a proposition for you, Marcus said one evening as they cleaned up after dinner. Ethan was in the living room, absorbed in a book for school. That sounds ominous, Jasmine replied, only half joking. It's not, I promise. He handed her a folder. Take a look. Inside were architectural renderings of a beautiful restaurant space, with seasoned with grace, emblazoned across the top in elegant script. What is this? I own a building in Castleberry Hill that's being renovated. The ground floor would make a perfect restaurant space. His eyes were bright with excitement. I've heard you talk about your dream of opening a place that honors your grandmother's recipes while adding your own modern twist. This could be it. Jasmine stared at the renderings, her heart racing. The space was beautiful. Exposed brick walls, large windows, an open kitchen where diners could watch the magic happen. Exactly what she'd always envisioned. Marcus, I can't accept this. You're not accepting anything. It's an investment opportunity. I provide the space and initial capital, you provide the talent and vision. We'd be partners. He hesitated. Business partners, to be clear. No strings attached. Why would you do this? Because you're brilliant, Jasmine. Your food isn't just delicious. It tells a story. It connects people to their roots. It creates community. That deserves a platform. He smiled. And selfishly, I'd get to eat your cooking whenever I want. She laughed despite herself. That's a lot of smothered chicken. I can think of worse fates. Jasmine traced the restaurant name with her finger. Seasoned with grace. Do you like it? I remembered something your grandmother used to say. Life seasons you with trials, but God covers you with grace. Jasmine finished, tears springing to her eyes. She said that all the time. It seemed fitting. But if you hate it, I don't hate it. It's perfect. She looked up at him. But Marcus, this is a huge commitment. What if things change between us? What if this arrangement with Ethan gets complicated? Then we handle it like adults. The restaurant would be yours, Jasmine. Your dream, your vision. My role would be silent partner, nothing more. He touched her hand briefly. No matter what happens between us personally, I want to see you succeed. I want Ethan to see his mother building something amazing. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't the calculated business move of the old Marcus. This was a genuine desire to make amends, to support her dreams, to give back some of what he'd taken when he'd walked away. I'll think about it, she promised. That night, Jasmine called Tanya, needing her friend's perspective. Girl, he's offering to bankroll your dream restaurant with no strings attached? After discovering he has a son he never knew about? Either he's had a genuine come-to-Jesus moment, or this is the most elaborate guilt offering I've ever heard of. That's what I can't figure out, Jasmine admitted. Is this real change, or just an expensive way to ease his conscience? What does your heart tell you? Jasmine sighed. That's the problem. My heart isn't trustworthy where Marcus is concerned. It never was. Then trust your spirit, Tanya advised. Pray on it. The Holy Spirit will guide you. If you believe in second chances when someone has truly changed, hit that like button. And tell me in the comments. Would you have forgiven Marcus, or walked away for good? Valentine's Day. Mama, you look pretty, Ethan said as Jasmine emerged from her bedroom in the guest house. She wore a simple red dress she'd found on sale years ago but rarely had occasion to wear. Thank you, baby. You look very handsome yourself. She straightened his clip-on tie, touched by Marcus's thoughtfulness in getting matching outfits for himself and Ethan. The invitation had come a week earlier, dinner at the main house, just the three of them. Nothing fancy, Marcus had insisted, though the formal card suggested otherwise. When they arrived, Jasmine gasped. The dining room had been transformed. Twinkling lights draped from the ceiling, candles flickering on every surface. The table set with fine china and crystal. Dad did all this himself, Ethan whispered loudly. He made me promise not to tell, but he's been working on it for days. Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking nervous but handsome in his suit. Happy Valentine's Day, he said simply. The meal was catered. Marcus had wisely not attempted to cook for such an important occasion, but he'd clearly chosen dishes with care. Each course represented a significant moment in their history. The jambalaya from their first date, the lemon cake from her grandmother's recipe that he'd loved so much, even the sparkling cider they'd shared at their engagement dinner because Jasmine didn't drink alcohol. You remembered all this? She asked, genuinely moved. I remember everything about us, Jasmine, the good and the bad. He glanced at Ethan, who was happily demolishing his dessert. And now we're making new memories. The three of us. After dinner, Ethan presented Jasmine with a handmade card, covered in glitter and heartfelt if misspelled sentiments. I love you bigger than the whole universe. He'd written in careful first-grade script. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. She hugged him tight, breathing in the scent of his hair, marveling as always at the miracle of him. Can I go play my new game now? Ethan asked, eyeing the video game system in the adjacent room that Marcus had recently installed. For a little while, Jasmine agreed. But not too late, it's still a school night. As Ethan scampered off, Marcus turned to her. I have something for you too, but it's not exactly a gift. He led her to the kitchen. Not the formal chef's kitchen where she prepared meals, but a smaller, cozier space that had once been a breakfast nook. It had been completely renovated, with warm wood cabinets, vintage-inspired appliances, and a large island perfect for cooking demonstrations. What is this? Your test kitchen, Marcus explained, for seasoned with grace. I know you haven't given me an answer yet about the restaurant, but I thought having a space to develop recipes, film cooking videos for social media, maybe even start a cookbook. It might help you decide. Jasmine ran her hand along the smooth countertop, emotion welling in her throat. It was perfect, intimate but professional, exactly the kind of space she dreamed of working in. Marcus, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now. He took her hands in his. Jasmine, these past 2 months have been the happiest of my life. Being with you and Ethan, watching you cook, hearing you laugh. It's shown me what really matters. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Jasmine's heart stuttered. This isn't what you think, he said quickly, opening it to reveal not a ring but a key. It's the key to the restaurant space. Whether you want to be business partners, friends, or something more, the space is yours. I've already transferred ownership to your name. You what? Jasmine stared at him in disbelief. The building is still mine, but the restaurant space belongs to you now. No strings, no conditions. Your dream on your terms. Tears filled her eyes. Why would you do this? Because 7 years ago, I was too blind to see your worth. Too foolish to understand that success isn't measured in square footage or social connections. He touched her cheek gently. You were always wife material, Jasmine. You were always everything. I was just too broken to recognize it. His voice caught. I'm not asking for your forgiveness or for another chance. I just want you to have the opportunity to build something that honors your grandmother's legacy and your own incredible talent. Jasmine looked down at the key in her palm, its weight seemingly greater than its small size would suggest. This wasn't just a key to a building. It was a key to possibilities, to the dream she'd set aside when life had taken unexpected turns. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything right now, Marcus assured her. Take your time. Think about it. Pray about it. Whatever you decide, the space is yours. She closed her fingers around the key, feeling its edges press into her palm. Thank you. It's the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me. They stood in silence for a moment, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. Then, from the other room, came Ethan's delighted laugh, breaking the tension. I should check on him, Jasmine said, grateful for the excuse to step back, to breathe, to process the magnitude of what Marcus had just offered. Of course. Marcus nodded, understanding in his eyes. It's getting late anyway. I should let you two get back to the guest house. As they walked toward the living room, Jasmine found herself studying Marcus's profile. The man beside her was both familiar and strange. The same features she'd once memorized with loving fingers, but softened now by time and experience, humbled by failure, deepened by regret. Could people truly change? Or did they simply become more fully themselves? The pretense and performance stripped away by life's harsh lessons. 7 years ago, the day after the breakup. He's not worth your tears, Big Mama had said, finding Jasmine curled on her couch, eyes swollen from crying. Any man who can't see your light doesn't deserve to bask in it. I thought he was the one, Jasmine had whispered, her voice raw. I thought we were building something real. Big Mama had settled her substantial frame beside Jasmine, the couch creaking in familiar protest. Baby girl, sometimes God has to close a door to open the right window. You remember how your granddaddy used to say the Lord works in mysterious ways? Jasmine had nodded, though at that moment, the mystery felt more like cruelty. Well, this is one of those times. You can't see it now, but someday you'll look back and understand why this had to happen. I don't think I'll ever understand why he stopped loving me. Big Mama had taken Jasmine's face between her weathered hands. Child, that man didn't stop loving you. He never started. What he loved was the idea of you, the pretty girl who could cook like an angel, who made him feel good about himself. But real love sees all of you. The good, the bad, the messy parts, and chooses you anyway. Real love doesn't walk away when things get inconvenient. Present day. Dad, look. I beat the level. Ethan's excited voice pulled Jasmine from her memories. He was bouncing on the couch, controller in hand, looking to Marcus for approval. That's awesome, buddy. Marcus high-fived him, his face alight with genuine pride. You're getting really good at this. Can I show Mom the cool move I learned? It's pretty late, buddy, Marcus said gently. Maybe tomorrow? You've got school in the morning. Ethan's face fell slightly, but he nodded. Okay. Promise we can play tomorrow. Promise. Marcus helped him turn off the game system. And maybe this weekend we can try that new park with the rock climbing wall. If that's okay with your mom, he added, glancing at Jasmine. She nodded, touched by his consistent deference to her parental authority. That sounds fun. But only if you finish your book report first. I will. Ethan hugged Marcus impulsively. Night, Dad. Thanks for the Valentine's dinner. You're welcome, son. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion as he returned the hug. Sweet dreams. As they walked back to the guest house, Ethan's hand warm in hers, Jasmine felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. Not resolution. There were still too many unanswered questions for that, but a quieting of the storm that had raged within her since seeing Marcus again. Mom, Ethan asked as she tucked him into bed. Do you like Dad? The directness of the question caught her off guard. Why do you ask that, baby? Because sometimes you look at him like you're trying to solve a really hard math problem. Ethan yawned widely. And sometimes you smile at him when you think nobody's looking. Children missed nothing, Jasmine thought ruefully. Your dad and I have a complicated history. Because he didn't know about me? That's part of it. She smoothed his covers, choosing her words carefully. But mostly because people can hurt each other without meaning to, and then it takes time to learn to trust again. Like when Jaden broke my action figure and said he was sorry, but I didn't want to let him play with my toys anymore? Jasmine smiled at the simple but apt comparison. Something like that, yes, but much bigger. Jaden's my friend again now, Ethan pointed out sleepily. He was really sorry, and he saved up his allowance to buy me a new figure. A better one. Out of the mouths of babes, Jasmine thought for the second time. That was very kind of him. Dad's trying to be kind too, Ethan murmured, his eyes drifting closed. He told me he wants to make you smile more. Jasmine leaned down to kiss his forehead, her heart full. Sleep tight, my sweet boy. I love you to the moon and back. And to Saturn and Jupiter too, he replied, their nightly ritual complete. Later, sitting on the guest house porch with a cup of tea, Jasmine turned the restaurant key over in her fingers. The moonlight caught its edges, making it gleam like a promise. Could she accept this gift? Not just the physical space, but the opportunity it represented. The chance to revive her dream, to honor Big Mama's legacy, to create something lasting for Ethan's future? And what about Marcus himself? The man who had broken her heart was offering her the means to fulfill her deepest ambition, asking nothing in return except perhaps forgiveness. Could she separate the gift from the giver? Should she? As if summoned by her thoughts, her phone lit up with a text from Marcus. No pressure about the key. Whatever you decide, I support you. Good night, Jasmine. She smiled despite herself, remembering Ethan's observation. Sometimes you smile at him when you think nobody's looking. Perhaps it was time to stop hiding those smiles. 3 days later. I've made a decision, Jasmine told Marcus as they walked through the empty restaurant space in Castleberry Hill. The afternoon sun streamed through the large windows, illuminating the possibilities of the bare room. About seasoned with grace. Marcus nodded, his expression carefully neutral. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. I want to do this, she said, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke. But I want to do it right, as a true partnership. What do you mean? I mean, I'll accept your investment, but as a business loan with fair terms, not a gift. I'll pay you back every penny with interest. She met his gaze steadily. And I want everything in writing, reviewed by my own lawyer. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. You've been talking to Tanya. Jasmine laughed, surprised he remembered her best friend's profession. She's the best contract attorney I know. And yes, she had some thoughts about accepting property from an ex. I bet she did. Marcus's eyes crinkled with amusement. For what it's worth, I think it's a smart decision. Protects both of us. Keeps things professional. Exactly. Jasmine walked further into the space, envisioning where the tables would go, where the open kitchen would be positioned. I've been working on a business plan. I want to start small, dinner service only, Thursday through Sunday. Focus on elevated soul food with seasonal ingredients. Maybe cooking classes during off hours. It sounds perfect. Marcus watched her with undisguised admiration. You've really thought this through. I've had 7 years to think about it, she admitted. Even when it seemed impossible, I never stopped planning, dreaming. That's what I've always loved about you, Marcus said softly. Your determination, your vision. The word loved hung in the air between them, neither acknowledging it directly. There's something else, Jasmine said, turning to face him fully. About us, about our situation. Marcus tensed slightly. Okay. I think we should take things slow. For Ethan's sake and for our own. She took a deep breath. I'm not saying no to the possibility of something between us again. But I need time. I need to see that this change in you is real and lasting. Relief flooded his features. That's more than fair. More than I deserve, honestly. It's not about deserving, Jasmine said, echoing his words from weeks earlier. It's about what's right for all of us. Ethan loves having you in his life. I can see how much you care about him. And I'm starting to remember what I saw in you all those years ago. Marcus stepped closer, hope evident in his eyes. Jasmine, She held up a hand, stopping him. But I'm not the same woman I was then. I'm stronger now, more certain of my worth. I won't accept anything less than full partnership, full respect, full acceptance. In business or in life. I wouldn't want anything less, he assured her. The woman you are now, she takes my breath away. Your strength, your grace, the way you've raised our son. I'm in awe of you, Jasmine. Truly. The sincerity in his voice touched something deep within her. A place that had been closed off for so long, she'd almost forgotten it existed. Then let's start here, she said, gesturing to the empty restaurant space around them. Let's build something together, something real, something lasting, and see where it leads us. Marcus nodded, understanding the layers of her proposal. Partners, he agreed, extending his hand. Partners, she confirmed, taking it. His palm was warm against hers, the contact sending a familiar yet new sensation up her arm. For a moment, they stood connected in the sunlit space, surrounded by possibility. Then Jasmine gently withdrew her hand, not ready yet for prolonged contact, for the memories it might awaken. I should pick up Ethan from school, she said. But I'll have Tanya draft the partnership agreement this week. I'll look forward to it. Marcus walked her to the door. Jasmine, thank you for giving me a chance to be part of Ethan's life, and for considering giving me a second chance with you. She smiled, allowing herself to really look at him, the man he'd become, not the ghost of who he'd been. Sometimes the hardest ingredients to work with create the most extraordinary flavors. My grandmother taught me that. 6 months later. 5 minutes to opening. Jasmine called, her voice carrying through the bustling kitchen of Seasoned with Grace. The staff, a mix of culinary school graduates and community members she trained herself, moved with practiced efficiency, putting final touches on the evening's dishes. The journey to this moment had been intense, months of renovation, recipe testing, staff hiring and training. But now, on opening night, everything was finally ready. The restaurant had already generated buzz in Atlanta's food scene. Jasmine's social media cooking videos, filmed in the test kitchen Marcus had created, had attracted thousands of followers. Her modern take on soul food classics, honoring tradition while embracing innovation, had caught the attention of local food critics and influencers. "How are you feeling?" Marcus appeared at her side, handsome in a tailored suit. Though he'd kept his promise to be a silent partner in the business, he'd been present for every major decision, offering support without taking control. Nervous, excited, grateful, Jasmine smoothed her chef's coat, embroidered with the restaurant's name and her own. "I still can't believe this is happening." "Believe it. You've earned this, Jasmine." He gestured to the dining room beyond the kitchen's glass partition, where Ethan was proudly showing Tanya and other family friends to their reserved table. "Everyone who matters is here to support you." "Almost everyone," she said softly, thinking of Big Mama, wishing she could see this moment. Marcus seemed to read her thoughts. "She's here in spirit. In every recipe, every technique you use. She'd be so proud of you." Jasmine nodded, blinking back tears. "Thank you for saying that." Over the past 6 months, their relationship had evolved gradually. Professional partnership had given way to cautious friendship, and friendship had slowly blossomed into something more. They'd taken it one step at a time. Family dinners, outings with Ethan, and eventually quiet evenings alone after their son was asleep. They'd talked for hours, excavating old wounds, examining past mistakes, sharing the growth and changes of the years they'd spent apart. Marcus had opened up about his father's relentless pressure, his own insecurities, the emptiness of his marriage to Camille. Jasmine had shared her fears and struggles as a single mother, her determination to succeed despite the odds, her journey back to faith when everything seemed darkest. Healing had come slowly in small moments of vulnerability and trust. The first time she'd allowed him to hold her hand during a movie. The Sunday he'd joined them at church, sitting beside them in the pew as if he belonged there. The afternoon he'd taught Ethan to ride a bike, and she'd realized she was falling in love with him all over again, not with the memory of who he'd been, but with the reality of who he'd become. "It's time," Marcus said gently, bringing her back to the present. "Your guests are waiting." Jasmine took a deep breath, centering herself. "Let's do this." The evening unfolded like a dream. Diners exclaimed over each course, Big Mama's collard greens elevated with smoked turkey and a touch of apple cider vinegar, crispy fried chicken brined in buttermilk and herbs, shrimp and grits with a spicy tomato gravy that paid homage to Jasmine's mother's recipe. Between courses, Jasmine moved through the dining room, greeting guests, accepting compliments, sharing the stories behind each dish. This was more than a restaurant. It was her heritage made tangible. Her grandmother's legacy continued through her own hands. Near the end of service, as desserts were being plated, peach cobbler with bourbon vanilla ice cream, chocolate chess pie with salted caramel, Marcus asked for everyone's attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," he said, raising his glass, "to Chef Jasmine Reynolds, whose talent, vision, and perseverance have created this extraordinary place, and to the memory of Big Mama, whose wisdom and love seasoned not just her food, but all who were fortunate enough to know her." "To Jasmine and Big Mama," the diners echoed, glasses raised. Jasmine felt tears threatening again, but these were tears of joy, of fulfillment, of dreams realized. Later, after the last guests had departed and the staff had cleaned up, Jasmine found herself alone in the kitchen with Marcus. Ethan had gone home with Tanya for a sleepover, giving his parents a rare night to themselves. "You did it," Marcus said, pride evident in his voice. Opening night was a triumph. We did it, Jasmine corrected, including him in the success. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have, he countered. Maybe not this quickly or in this particular space, but you would have found a way. That's who you are, Jasmine. Unstoppable when you set your mind to something. She smiled, accepting the compliment. Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to do it alone. Marcus stepped closer, taking her hands in his. There's something I've been wanting to ask you. Tonight seems like the perfect time. Jasmine's heart quickened. Marcus. These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life, he said softly. Watching you build this restaurant, being Ethan's father, earning back your trust bit by bit. It's shown me what really matters. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Unlike on Valentine's Day, this time when he opened it, a ring nestled inside. Not an ostentatious diamond like the one he'd given her 7 years ago, but a vintage-looking band with a pearl surrounded by tiny sapphires. It was Big Mama's, Jasmine whispered, recognizing the ring her grandmother had worn every day of her married life. How did you? I asked Tanya to help me find it, Marcus explained. She said your aunt had been keeping it for you. Tears filled Jasmine's eyes as Marcus knelt before her on the kitchen floor, the heart of her new restaurant, the place where her passion and heritage came together. Jasmine Reynolds, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. You were always wife material. You were always everything. I was just too blind and foolish to see it. These past months have shown me what true partnership looks like. Supporting each other's dreams, respecting each other's strengths, growing together through challenges. He took a deep breath. I'm not the same man who hurt you 7 years ago. Life has seasoned me with trials, but God has covered me with grace. Just like your grandmother always said. I promise to love you and Ethan with everything I am, to honor your strength and independence, to be the partner you deserve in all things. He held up the ring, Big Mama's pearl gleaming in the kitchen's soft light. Will you marry me, Jasmine? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I see your worth, that I cherish who you are, exactly as you are? Jasmine looked down at the man before her. Not the arrogant young executive who had broken her heart, but a humbled, faithful man who had earned her trust through consistent action, who loved their son with his whole heart, who had supported her dreams without trying to control them. Yes, she said, her voice clear and certain. Yes, I will marry you. As he slipped Big Mama's ring onto her finger. A perfect fit, as if it had been waiting all along for this moment. Jasmine felt a sense of completion, of divine timing. The journey hadn't been what she'd expected, but it had led her exactly where she needed to be. Marcus stood and gathered her in his arms, his kiss tender yet passionate, a promise of the life they would build together. I love you, he whispered against her lips. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I love you too, she replied, the words feeling both familiar and brand new. And thank you for showing me that sometimes, the blessing you've been praying for comes wrapped in the package you least expect. 3 months later, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife, Pastor Williams declared, beaming at the couple before him. Marcus, you may kiss your bride. The small church erupted in cheers as Marcus tenderly kissed Jasmine, their friends and family celebrating the union that had been 7 years and many life lessons in the making. Ethan, handsome in his miniature suit as the ring bearer, bounced excitedly beside them. Are we officially a family now? He asked as they turned to face their guests. We've always been a family, baby, Jasmine assured him, smoothing his tie. This just makes it official on paper. And in the eyes of God, Marcus added, his hand warm on Jasmine's back. The three of us, blessed and united. The reception was held at Seasoned with Grace, transformed for the evening into an intimate celebration space. Jasmine's staff had outdone themselves, preparing a feast that honored both families' traditions. Marcus's mother's famous mac and cheese alongside Big Mama's recipes. A beautiful blend of heritage and new beginnings. As they shared their first dance as husband and wife, Marcus held Jasmine close, swaying gently to Aretha Franklin's I Say a Little Prayer. Happy? he murmured against her temple. More than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly. It's like Big Mama always said. Sometimes you have to go through the fire to come out refined. She was a wise woman. Marcus pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. I promise you, Jasmine Harrington, that I will spend every day making sure you never regret giving me this second chance. And I promise you, she returned, that I will never let you forget how far we've come, how much we've grown, how blessed we are to have found our way back to each other. Later, as they cut their wedding cake, a stunning creation by Jasmine's pastry chef, incorporating elements of both their favorite desserts, Tanya raised her glass for a toast. To Jasmine and Marcus, she began, her voice carrying across the restaurant. When Jasmine first told me she'd taken a job cooking for her ex-fiancé, I thought she'd lost her mind. Laughter rippled through the gathering. But watching their journey these past months has taught me something profound about divine timing and second chances. She turned to the couple, her expression softening. Sometimes, the ingredients of your past are exactly what you need to create the feast of your future. You too have taken hurt and disappointment and transformed them into something beautiful. Not just this amazing restaurant, but a love that's stronger for having been tested by fire. Jasmine leaned against Marcus's shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him, the steadiness that had replaced his former restless ambition. Across the room, Ethan played with his cousins, his laughter a reminder of the unexpected blessing that had come from their painful separation. God doesn't make mistakes, Tanya continued, echoing the words Jasmine had clung to during her darkest days. And neither did you, Jasmine, by choosing yourself 7 years ago. That choice led you here, to a man who truly sees your worth, to a business that honors your heritage, to a life seasoned with trials but covered, always, with grace. As glasses were raised around them, Jasmine and Marcus shared a private look, one that acknowledged the long road behind them and the promising journey ahead. They had been broken apart and brought back together, not by chance but by purpose, not by accident but by design. In the kitchen of her dreams, surrounded by loved ones, wearing her grandmother's ring, Jasmine felt the fullness of Big Mama's wisdom. Life seasons you with trials, but God covers you with grace. And sometimes, the blessing you've been praying for comes wrapped in the package you least expect. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for more powerful stories of resilience, redemption, and divine restoration. Remember, Queens, sometimes the ingredients of your past are exactly what you need to create the feast of your future. God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next story.